This is All of It. I'm Allison Stewart, live from the WNYC studios in Soho. Thank you for sharing part of your day with us. I'm really grateful that you are here. And thanks to everyone who came to the Green Space yesterday for our Broadway on the Radio event with the cast and creative team from Cats, the Jellicle Ball. A good time was had by all. If you didn't catch it live, you can go back and listen wherever you get your podcasts, or go to WNYC's YouTube page to watch the video of the live performance. Here's what we have coming up on the show today. We'll map out some of New York State road trips with the head of the state's tourism board. We'll talk about why Froyo is having a moment. And we'll hear from actor Chase Infinity, who stars in the Hulu series The Testaments. That's the plan. So let's get this started with the new film, I Love Boosters. Boots Riley was in a group, and back in the day, they recorded a song called I Love Boosters. The lyrics read, I love them boosters, they love them boosters, you should love them too, even if they don't know ya. They'll get it for ya, like a whole outfit or a shoe. A booster is a person who jacks from the retail and sells it in the hood for dirt cheap resale. Almost got it. That describes Riley's new action comedy message film of the same name. The film I Love Boosters is set in Oakland, California. It follows a trio of friends and professional shoplifters known as the Velvet Gang. They are fashion-forward Robin Hood types who are offering an integral service to members of their community. Their latest target is a cutthroat fashion mogul named Christy Smith, who is making money off of the creativity of the street and wraps it up in girl bossification. As the Velvet Gang and Christie face off, the film explores themes such as capitalism, workers' rights, and what it means to be an artist. The film is titled I Love Boosters. It enters theaters today. Joining me now to discuss it is Boots Riley. It is nice to meet you.
Great to meet you, too.
So you're in the group that recorded I Love Boosters. It was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Why did you want
to... when I was 3.
When you were just a little bit boy. Yeah. Why did you want to return to the idea this year?
I mean, it's actually something that's in the news a lot now. The Intercept investigative journal did an expose that all these police unions got together in the wake of the George Floyd protests and hired publicists to seed stories in local news around the country about the supposed rise in crime and focusing on stuff like shoplifting when actually it was going down. So that's maybe part of what's in the air. But really, it was because I've spent I spent a long time being a broke rapper that needed to stay fly, and definitely worked with a lot of boosters who provided stuff for me. But at the same time, I saw how much they were helping the community, how much, even though it was illegal, it was not more immoral than the folks that they were getting it from. And so I thought that in a time when there's a lot of villainization going on, and especially this is a group of Black women, that it would be good to live with them for a little bit.
Sometimes critics have referred to this film as an anti-capitalist comedy. First of all, did you sit down and think, I'm going to write an anti-capitalist comedy?
No, I mean, I think about, let me be clear. I'm a communist, and I believe that the people, we should have a world where the people democratically control the wealth that we create with our labor. So I believe that. So if I make some art that has to do with what I believe, it's going to be along the lines of those politics. I don't have to be like, I'm going to try to make this. I just make art that talks about the world in the way that I see it. And I start with characters. I start with characters that we want to be with, that we want to experience their trials and tribulations, and it expands from there. And a lot of times what I'm doing, though, that I get from music is I want people to feel it. So I'm upping the ante on the contradictions. I'm heightening the contradictions to the point of absurdity in some ways. And then that ends up being funny. It ends up being, because comedy and tragedy both have irony in common, and that irony is very connected to contradiction, and so so I don't know. I don't know how to not write a comedy because life is so funny. Like I think people have to do a lot of work to extract the comedy out of life. I've been to jail a few times, but the longest was for 3 days, and people laugh in jail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
like we often look at certain ideas and problems, and I think when the comedy is taken out, we're taking out some actual important analysis.
You know, the film is really colorful. Sometimes it's really wacky in the best sense of the word. There's a lot of sight humor that's involved. But then you also talk about workers' rights and stealing people's creativity. How do you think about balancing the idea of the visual stimulation that we're getting versus the deeper messages?
It's not a balance. It's all one thing.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So it the visual stimulation that we're getting is also, I would say, also music and sound effects are part of that stimulation. And I'm trying to take people through visceral experiences that are analogous to the emotional experiences folks are going through. And like I was saying, we're juxtaposing things, we're exposing contradictions, and I want if I have the camera pushing a character back with things whizzing by us, that's because that's part of the idea. That's where we're going together, and it leads to these other ideas. And again, like when I'm writing it, I'm just being honest with myself about how I feel these personal things connect with these larger things. So we're talking about here. We're talking about the large contradiction of, boosters are not outside of capitalism. They are part of the distribution system. And these things are made of not just other things, they're made of people's time. And so the idea is to, one of the ideas in the movie is we see both sides of that production line, and it's personal to us. Now, that putting those together is ridiculous in and of itself. The stuff is made by people that can't afford it, and the inspirations for fashion are often from Black communities and communities of color and other working class communities who inspire the fashion and can't afford it. Mm-hmm. So those contradictions are ridiculous. And when you really when you put all of those things together, that comedy, that visual visual conflict as well, the colors, like this is a very colorful movie, partly because I need to build a rhythm of big swaths of color that change from this to that. I also am trying to have everything in camera so that you feel textures. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of collage in this. One of my biggest cinematic influences is Parliament Funkadelic, and they might have a lead guitar, electric guitar over an accordion with a gospel choir playing underneath it and someone doing spoken word, and it all fits together. And so I'm trying to visually do that same thing, not just visually, but in editing and all of that.
I love that their lipsticks changed. That was my favorite part of it, is watching their lipsticks change. We're talking to Boots Riley about his new film, I Love Boosters, The Velvet Gang. It's Corvette, Sade, and Mariah, played by amazing actors Keke Palmer, Naomi Ackie, and Taylor Page. You said that you don't write roles specifically with actors in mind. When they come to the set, how do they fit into the roles? Do you sort of tailor the roles to them? Do you?
Yeah, well, there's anywhere from weeks to months of a lot of talking. We just talk about life, talk about each other's lives, things like that, and they bring and I'm casting people who I know are bringing things to the table.
Sure.
Right. So a big part of my job is casting people. In this, I am having people do something. I think every actor that's in this is doing something you've never seen them do. However, it's something that I have found that's in them and decided that I want that on my screen. So that's a big part. Big part of it is talking. And so therefore, I do change the character. I'm not one of those like people. I want actors to come from a place where they are having the emotion that the character is having, not showing us that they're having that emotion, just having it. And I'll put the camera as close up to their face as we need to understand that, to feel it. But it's not. It's more grounded, and so yeah, they have a big part of shaping the character. It's not necessarily in dialogue as it is in, pacing and, personification.
Let's listen to a little bit of I Love Boosters. This is Corvette, Sade, and Mariah talking about their plans to rob Christy Smith's stores. Let's listen.
We gonna grab the videotapes, all right?
We be wearing wigs, and the camera ain't gonna enough to prove.
Are you?
They don't know my name is Cassandra. We use fake IDs. They don't know where we live. None of this.
Even if they can't prove it, they'll still know it was us, though.
Let me be specific. I don't care if they know it was us. I care that Christy Smith hates that they know it was us. We clear the place out in 40 minutes or less, and be a lick big enough for us to sit back for a minute.
I like the sound design, too.
That's Tune Yards that does the score.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
What did you think about the first time you saw those three actors, Kiki, Naomi, and Taylor, on screen together?
Well, our rehearsal was just them sitting in a room and talking. We thought we were going to sit down and do a rehearsal, and they started talking and really vibing. And so I just sat there. I was like, I'm not going to ask them to do lines. This is the rehearsal, is them getting to know each other. And it was electric. They really hit it off and became friends. And honestly, with the way that we shot this, was a very complicated shoot. We had specific lighting requirements, things like that. Our DP, Natasha Breyer, is a genius, and we had lenses invented for us by Panavision, and she had her own invention that she put in front of the lens to have color kind of wash and change on there. She doesn't like me to talk too much about it, but because she needs to get the patent. But the point is they had a lot of time to vibe together in between stuff. So you really feel that, like, you are hanging with them and you want to keep hanging with them.
This was interesting. At South by Southwest, actor, I hope I pronounced her last name right, Poppy Liu.
Yep.
She said that, this is so interesting, that you tailored her character to where she grew up.
Yeah.
In China.
Yeah.
Right? And you went down sort of a rabbit hole about industrialized cities and industrial organizations in that part of China. And she speaks Mandarin, or she comes from people who speak Mandarin. That was very detailed of you.
I don't know. I don't know how it's normally done, but this is only my third project, so I just thought that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, why are the details important to you?
I mean, yeah, the details are, first of all, in life, I think that's how I got to this point, is I had a period of time where I thought the details didn't matter. All that mattered is my work, and so the details of my life didn't matter. And then I flipped, because that gets you very depressed. And then you get really into the details. What are things made of? What do things look like? And that was luckily before I started making film. And to me, the details are what it's all about, like the specificity. The more specific you can be, the more universal you are, because the specificity allows for the humanity to be in there, even if you don't know. And that's how I am about Oakland. These films are about, and TV shows are about Oakland, and you may never have been there before, but because there's this internal logic, then it relates to people all over the world.
We're talking to Boots Riley about his new film, I Love Boosters. All right, in the film, we're rooting for the Velvet Gang. I'm rooting for them anyway, against Christy Smith. How would you describe Christy Smith? She's played by Demi Moore, we should say.
Yeah. To me, and she does, again, a performance that's unlike anything she's done before. And Christy Smith is an artist who is a fashion designer in this case, and she believes that her work is enough. She believes there's nothing you can do to change the world, and that all you can do is use your art, in her case fashion, to change how people feel about the world. So, there's if you know me, that's probably something I disagree with. However, what I have all the characters saying are things that I actually do say and believe. So, I put myself into those things. And she, so she comes into conflict with these boosters who are her, who idolize her, and they run head up because she doesn't feel like her art should be treated that way.
Let's listen to a clip from I Love Boosters. Corvette sees Christy on the news answering a question about what she thinks of the Velvet Gang.
Christy, what are your thoughts on the Velvet Gang?
Christy Smith knows we exist.
Low-class urban bitches. With all due respect to urban bitches.
Did she just call us urban bitches? It's so early 2000s.
Why did you have Christy call them urban bitches?
Just because that was like the code, like that word that used to be used, like when people didn't want to say black, and you knew they were talking about black people, and they said urban, so I just gave her that.
Demi Moore has been in this business for years. What was something interesting that she brought to the character?
Oh man, she would say, "Well, I have a friend that's that's a fashion designer, and they do this." She had all this experience of that, right? And and she also, one of her notes was really good that actually caused me to put a couple things in there that caused laughs. Because the character was a child prodigy who was an MIT genius who started doing fashion. I won't get into the whole thing, but started doing fashion at a young age. And so she was like, well, if she's a genius, I need more things that just tell us she's a genius. So I looked up a lot of antiquated insults, and coming from, and they end up, so there's like, she calls them mumble crust whores, and she calls them fustelarian. And these are words like mumble crust is something that someone from an aristocrat might try to insult someone for starving, even though they're the ones that are causing them to starve. Or fustelarian, meaning you have to fight for your life, right? But so if after this movie you hear people using the words mumble crust or fustelarian, I need a footnote credit on that.
You're both the writer and director of this film. When does the screenwriter role end for you, and when does the director begin? Or is it the same?
They both are the same thing. When I'm writing the script, I need people to see the movie while they're reading it, and because I'm usually giving it to people that either I need to be in the movie or fund the movie. So I want and also I never know whether it's going to get made. So I want that script to be a document that maybe people read 20 years later and be like, this would have been an amazing movie. So I'm describing I'm describing production design. I'm describing the way camera moves, things like that. Obviously, they change later. But then when we're on the set, I can be honest because it's my writing. I can be like, that's bad writing. Let's not do that. Let's do this other thing. And it's all happening at the same time.
We got a text here that says, Sorry to Bother You was one of the best movies ever, from one of our listeners texted in. So that's for you.
Yeah, thank you.
What did you learn from Sorry to Bother You that you were able to use on this film?
Okay, well, on Sorry to Bother You, for instance, we have this part where the papers are flying behind Lakeith Stanfield's character, Cassius, and he feels defeated, and he sits back in his chair, the papers fly. That took us like 20 to 30 minutes to get those papers flying, and everybody was like, this is an indie film. We had a budget of less than $4 million. They're like, why are we spending a huge part of the day trying to do this? And I pushed for it, and we got it, but once we started getting it, I was like, I felt bad, like we wasted so much time. So I was like, I got to make this be worthwhile. So I thought about what the next scene was, and we added a transition in there. I had Lakeith turn to the side and say, you're going to stuff all that in your mouth? And it transitioned to the next scene, and it worked so well that when I was writing this, I was like, oh, I'm doing that to the 1,000th time. And so we have a lot of transitions built into the scenes that we filmed with, where the camera leads you to something, or the characters lead you to this next thing. And, it's a thing that I'm very proud of in the movie.
I'm not going to get into it, but Don Cheadle and Kara Young are both in this.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen Proof?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, Proof, they decided to do Proof while they were shooting that scene while they're together in this movie. I introduced Kara Young to Don Cheadle on this movie, and because Kara, there was someone else that was going to play the character, and Kara is a good friend of mine. She was visiting the set. That person totally faked. I was on the phone. I looked over at Kara. I said, "You want to play a role?" And she was like, "Let me change my flight." And people on the set, they weren't familiar, but she started going, and they were like, "Who is this? Who is this?" And I introduced Don to her, and she convinced Don that he should start doing Broadway again.
All right. Kara was here last week. She's the best.
Yeah.
She is the best.
She is hilarious in this. Like
She's really funny.
Every line she comes up saying on I Love Boosters gets people rolling. And she's amazing in Is God Is, too. I just went and saw that last week. Yeah.
She and Mallory were here last week.
I'm really hyped. And if people don't know, she was also in my TV show, I'm a Virgo. So, and then Don Cheadle, he's on. We almost did it to where we didn't put his name in the credits. That was like the initial idea. He's like, yeah, I'm down to do it. I don't want people to recognize me, and then people will find out years later that was me. And then I was like, Don, we really need to get butts and seats here.
We need your name on the poster.
Yeah.
First of all, can I also ask you where you get your hats? Because I have hats all over this. I almost wore one today.
Yeah, I was told coming in here that you do. So it's called Uptown Yardie. They are in Brixton and in London. However, they are on Instagram and can get you hats wherever you want.
I like a
Uptown
place
Yardie
in Bed-Stuy, Ashaka Givens.
Okay.
She's an amazing designer as well, so check her out.
Look her up. Yeah.
I've been talking to Boots Riley. His film I Love Boosters enters theaters this weekend. Thanks for being here.
It's there.
Go.
Peace. Thank you.